I'm here with Public Works today to talk about the new EVs that the department has purchased, because it's kind of cool that you guys have a bunch of new electric vehicles in your fleet. And I wanted to just see how it's going. So let's first maybe just go around and have folks introduce themselves and tell us like what your experience with EVs was prior to the Public Works purchase. And I can go first. So I'm Kathy Kunst with the Office of Energy and Climate Change, and I actually am on my second EV. I currently own a VW ID4. We had a used Nissan Leaf before.
Ryan Shore with Public Works. I drove Prius when I was with Water Resource Engineering, so kind of that hybrid thing. And I really enjoyed, I mean, for a work vehicle, great car to get around in. Had a Tesla Uber one time. It was kind of neat. And now just started driving the Public Works vehicles. So yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Braithwaite with Public Works, and I didn't have a ton of experience with EV vehicles. I had ridden in a couple, hybrids. A friend of mine, a neighbor, has a Tesla. Went for a joyride with him, but never really drove one before. And then, and when we purchased ours, that was the first time I've technically driven one.
Okay.
I'm Todd Draper, Public Works, and I had test drove one on a lot because in anticipation of this happening, and that was the only experience I really had with an EV prior to the purchase. Obviously, when I went to purchase, I drove them, and I thought they were kind of neat. I liked them, so
Okay.
kind of moved us into the purchase.
Yeah. So summarize for us, Todd, what you purchased.
Okay, so I honestly was going in to purchase a partial fleet replacement this year. And it just turned out that when I asked for my budget request, the prices I was getting back from the dealers allowed me to get more. So we took it a step further, and what we did is we purchased two Hyundai Ioniq 6s, more of like a sedan, four-person sedan. So sometimes we take more people on event, most times not. And then we purchased a Nissan Leaf, and we purchased a Chevy Bolt, and they're really nice, like a hatchback where you can put the seats down. And I figured for like, sometimes there's instances where we have to like haul some stuff. So I thought those would be a good vehicle to fit our needs. But those are the four vehicles we picked up.
Okay, so a little bit of a mix there.
Yeah.
So guys, what are your impressions driving them? What are your first impressions?
Go ahead, Brandon.
So I went along to the dealership with Todd, and they had all four of the vehicles sitting there, and I drove the Nissan Leaf back to the office here. And I would say they're high tech because they're new. So it has all the greatest, the latest technology. I don't drive newer personal vehicles, and so there was some technology they had to get used with, but the EV component wasn't really a learning curve. The push button start, push button stop, push button transmission, and which once I kind of learned that, the dealer gave me the 30-second intro to say, hey, that's where you're going to want to start it. And I've driven that vehicle, and I've driven since the Bolt a few times. And so it's just a little bit of those nuances from vehicle to vehicle. I imagine they try to kind of separate between themselves and make them just a little bit different on purpose. But as far as the actual driving experience, no learning curve with that. I think I was taken aback a little bit at the instant power. There's no delay.
The torque.
The torque, that's what it's called. And so that's kind of fun. But the actual driving experience is, foot and hands and mirrors and
all the basics.
all the basics.
What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I would agree. It's really driving them is kind of nice because it's power to the pedal. There's no lag if you need to, merge onto the belt line, as we all have to do from time to time. It's quick. And so I've driven the Bolt and one of the Ioniq 6s, both nice cars. I think kind of to Brandon's point, there are a lot of features, as there are with all new vehicles, that without spending some time just sitting in there and playing around on the dash before you start driving, there's probably a lot of things technology wise that it can do
Mhm.
that we don't really need. Because we just kind of go from job site to job
Right,
site,
right.
but yeah, when you think about the, we just never have to gas up, which is awesome. Just,
Mhm.
I think the range on them is close to 300 miles for the Ionic and probably the same for the Bolt. And I think for us and really for any county employee day to day, if you're driving more than a couple hundred miles, you're probably not getting much work done anyway. So for a fleet standpoint, I think they really make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And, the maintenance part of it, I was just kind of looking at the Ionics maintenance intervals. Basically, every 8,000 miles, they want you to rotate the tires and they're gonna inspect the brakes. No oil changes, no transmission fluid changes, none of the carbon, oil-based stuff.
right,
So,
Right.
I guess in long term, we'll see how long the batteries last on the things, but combustion engines don't last forever either. So, no, I really like it. I think they're really nice cars and really enjoy driving them. So, yeah.
Cool. There are a lot less moving parts in the
Right.
electric vehicle. So in theory, we should see a difference in maintenance just because, there aren't all those things that, which is you should jump in here too, if whatever.
I think the thing I like well, not the most, but one of the really interesting things is the one pedal driving.
Mm.
Like when you
Mhm.
toggle up the resistance or the instant brake, it's like golf cart mode is what they called it.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. You let up the gas and the thing's braking itself and recharging at the same time. It didn't take long to get used to that, and I kind of like it. It's just, you just don't even, your brain adapts to it real quickly.
Right.
And I like that. I also like the smooth, the quiet is great. Yeah, they've been really good. They fit in, like these guys are saying, they fit into
Uh-huh.
our workflow really well. It works for us. And the thing that's been really interesting too is even with limited charging capacity, we're working on our infrastructure, but even with one level 2 charger and sharing with waste and renewables, we're kind of shuffling 6 vehicles on one charger.
And you're doing okay.
And we're doing okay.
You're not.
It could be better. It's something we have to watch what we're doing, but
Yeah.
We've really had no instances of, oh wait, I can't get it somewhere, or, oh, vehicle's not charged.
Yeah.
Right.
We haven't had any of that.
Yeah.
So there was an instant, I had to go out to, a pre-bid out in Mesa Maney.
Mm-hmm.
The vehicle, I took the Bolt, I think that day, it said it had 120 miles of range. So I drove to Mesa Maney, then checked a job site in Verona and came back to the office and it said I had 70 miles of range. So it seems like, not knowing the exact distance, but it seems like it's pretty accurate. As far as whatever it tells you have for range seems to be pretty close.
Yeah, the way those estimators work, it's based on the recent driving history of that vehicle is sort of how it's an algorithm. It's like, so if probably across you folks, you're driving to county job sites, which are almost always highway driving, you're gonna have almost more consistent estimators, I would think. Sometimes people complain about the estimator because they, like us, drive a little bit in the city and then occasionally drive some distance. I don't know what happened to her there. It's all back. And so then the estimator isn't that good with the distance because it didn't know we were, it can't forecast. It can just predict on the backside. So if you're doing similar driving with it all the time, the estimator will be a little bit better. But of course, you're going to see differences in the cold if you're running the console heat. So one of the things we should make sure is where the heated seats and the heated steering wheels are in those, because that does not run off the main battery. It runs off the 12-volt battery, so it doesn't affect your range.
Sure.
And you're probably when I'm driving in the winter, I'm wearing a coat and gloves in the car. I don't need it to be 75 in the car. I just take
I wonder
the
if we
edge
should
off.
check our settings to see if there's some temperature, if the car reads a temperature outside and
Oh,
default some of those
yes.
on.
yes,
Um,
it probably
because I
does,
feel
yeah.
like I feel like I took it one day, I'm not even sure what vehicle, and I noticed, oh, the steering wheel's warm.
Yeah.
And I didn't turn it on, but I didn't
Mm.
know if
It
it had
might,
been left
yeah,
on
in
or
some
maybe it had
vehicles
sensed.
it might stay on.
Yeah, and we would
Yeah, I
just have to
don't-
get those settings
Yeah,
right.
right, and that's the learning curve of it, I mean, because after all, you guys had some pretty aged vehicles, is
We
my
had very
understanding.
aged vehicles for sure.
Right, so,
We were definitely in need, and the one thing that I know, but at least the Ionics, they have the touchscreen panel, it's very intuitive, like you can get into settings pretty easily. Another thing I really like too is like on that specific vehicle is a lot of the features you can toggle on just a button on the steering wheel.
Right.
yeah,
I noticed a lot of them are even right there, you don't even have to get into the screen
Right,
if you don't want to,
right, right.
which I think is really a nice feature, it makes it
And
easy.
a safety thing too, that,
Absolutely.
you know, being able to toggle it on the steering wheel versus, oh, now I'm gonna look at this screen.
I noticed the Ionic has automatic braking. Like if you come up on
Oh,
a
yeah.
vehicle,
Mhm.
it brakes automatically, which my Toyota Tacoma has as well, and that's a handy feature. You know,
Mhm,
especially in
mhm.
beltline traffic, you can stop and start
Right,
pretty quickly,
right,
so.
right, having that
Um,
safety.
Yeah, but back to the range again, I mean, really, it's no different than your gas gauge on a gas vehicle. I
Right.
mean, if you're a person who drives, you know, heavy footed, and you're stomping on all the time,
Mhm.
it may say have a tank, but that may not last as long as
Right,
someone who drives.
That's
carefully.
exactly right.
So I noticed the Ionic when I get in there, somebody must like sport mode, because that's usually in sport mode. But,
Right.
I've driven it in eco and in sport, and you can tell the difference.
Uh-huh.
You know, and,
Right.
so.
Right, right.
I guess talking about range too, you know, we do a lot of short trips, one person, maybe two people,
Mhm.
out to a job site, maybe check a second job site or a third job
Mhm.
site as we make our circuit. Our vehicles are here, normally come in, our construction projects work during the day, and so we
Right.
come in, we might grab a vehicle, do
Right.
what we need, we're in and out quite a bit. But let's just say, roughly if it's a 300-mile range, maybe each day we're going 30 miles.
Uh-huh.
maybe.
Right.
And so we've noticed that we didn't quite know how often we would have to charge. And I think we're kind of developing a rule of thumb that an overnight charge is getting us at least a week. And so, we're not here at night, and so we can just
Right.
leave the vehicle charged up overnight.
Yeah, it's got plenty of time.
And then
Yeah.
the next day, it's ready, and then it
Right.
can last that whole
Right.
week
Right.
for that vehicle. And then, and we've kind of set kind of an internal policy that just, if it gets below 50%,
Mhm.
start planning on
Right.
being a charge.
Being in
And we
charge.
developed a little board here in the office to just note what car is on the charger,
Yeah.
since we're all sharing one charger.
Right.
But I would say it's been like about a week plus as our construction projects gear up during the
Mhm.
summer. We will probably have more shorter trips,
Yeah.
which might lead to more charging. But,
Right.
it all depends if it's shorter trips, large
Yeah.
trips, how much it's being
Exactly.
used, but we use them all interchangeably.
Mhm.
And, so really, the charging doesn't affect our workflow because
Right.
it's charging at night. So,
Yeah.
or it can charge over a weekend
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
it doesn't slow
Right.
us down like going to a gas station would
Mhm.
during
Right.
work
Right,
hours.
right, it's not that, well, and it sounds like, I mean, you're making me think that maybe like 3 to 4 vehicles comfortably could share a charger, like 6 is maybe like a little bit more.
Depending
We
upon-
appreciate your flexibility as the,
Yeah.
you're
Not
gonna
all
get
of
a
our
little.
guys are out every day either,
Yeah.
some
Right.
days you have an office day where somebody's
Right.
not going out.
Yeah,
It really kind of varies how much
Mhm.
they're being used, and other times they might sit for 2 to 3 days at a time.
no, it doesn't, I
Yeah.
don't
Is
know.
it not, maybe we're not moving enough.
Maybe-
Moving it up or something.
But yeah,
We'll fix that.
we're getting by.
So has there been anything that's been more of an adjustment?
No, yeah, it's nice to have dependable vehicles to drive. So it's been an adjustment in a good way.
Good point, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we throw out the flat tires, or
Right.
all the brakes aren't working on this
Right.
car, or all of this is.
Wow.
It was
Okay.
really bad.
It was
So
getting pretty
knowing
bad.
we have reliable vehicles has
Yeah.
been nice.
Yeah.
But I don't think there really has been much of an adjustment. I was expecting more. Let's just put it that way. So I'm pleasantly surprised that it has
How
not been.
easy it's been.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it will get easier as we get our other chargers in the back.
right,
Mhm.
It's
exactly.
only gonna get easier for us.
Yeah,
I think one thing we should keep in mind is, especially as construction gears up during the summer and then just being here at the Line Energy Center where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, is that our vehicles, we don't make as much noise as we would
Mm,
anymore, or would be
Yeah.
on a construction site where there's, maybe people walking around. So
Yeah.
that's something I've noticed, that, maybe
Yeah.
I'll use the horn or maybe I'll let people know that. So that's one
Yeah.
thing to keep in mind. Some of them do have some, sound, I think.
I feel like that all of them should have a sound if they're going less than, and I don't remember if this is 10 miles an hour. There's some like minimum speed that
It's like a
below
whirring
that,
sound,
it's like
yeah.
Yeah.
and every vehicle, kind of like some of the other stuff, everybody has their own sound, but to your point, that might not be heard at a construction site where things are louder and people are
Sure.
used to really loud
Or
vehicles.
World Dairy, when
Right,
there's so many people.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
That would be
right.
another one.
So, yeah, I think that's a, very good safety thing to just be thinking about, okay, that and I can tell you that happens to us sometimes at events. We'll be like driving in a parking lot and there are people walking in front, and I'm like, why are they standing in the middle of the road? It's like, oh, because they haven't heard us, because we're quiet and
They're
they're
probably in their phones,
and they're probably on their phones too.
it's their own little world.
That's right.
So the vehicles are quiet though. So the first time I drove both the Bolt and the Ioniq, I just left the radio off and just wanted to, and it's just,
Mhm.
all it is tire noise.
Yeah,
That's the only
Yeah.
noise you get. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have that engine noise, so it is.
yeah,
It's nice.
it is a lot. And you guys don't do a lot of probably having conversations in vehicles, but you notice that when you like are driving with people and you want to like
Right.
hear conversations from the back or something, it's like, oh, it's a lot easier to, I think about that for like our human services staff hauling clients and things that it's just going to be easier to have those conversations because everybody can hear everybody.
And you go on speakerphone on your cell phone, like a lot of times when you're driving,
Yeah.
you're taking calls.
Right,
And you can put it on speaker and you don't have that.
You can Bluetooth.
right,
You know,
right.
or
right.
Bluetooth it, yep.
Yeah,
So that's
that you
really
get
handy.
a lot better,
sure.
down there. I find in city driving, I often, if I don't have the radio on, when I pull up next to someone, I can hear their radio.
Right.
Oh, I'm sharing now. Yeah, because it's like a lot less. So Todd, do you have other advice for other departments?
I would say, I would encourage people to not be afraid. If your needs or your usage of the vehicle is kind of what we've been speaking about, short day trips, you got ability to charge overnight. Instances like the highway, if they're using them 24/7 and things, and heavier vehicles, that might be different.
Okay.
But I mean, for office or like staff applications, human services, I don't want to speak to their processes, but if you have time to charge overnight, it's a very smooth, seamless transition. And like we talked about, the fact that you're not scheduling oil changes, running the Kaisers, have to schedule oil changes,
Oh,
schedule tire rotations as much. I mean, that is very nice
Right.
because I don't want to take my time to do all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's just,
Yeah,
they've been great. And then once we see what the longevity is of these vehicles, hopefully it's what has been advertised. And I would just encourage people to expand out and try the
Awesome.
EVs. They've been great.
awesome,
So,
terrific, thanks.
yeah,
Thanks.
thanks Kathy.
Yeah,